They never tell you how quiet betrayal sounds. It doesn't come crashing in like thunder. It doesn't scream in your face. No, it comes in whispers. It comes in silences, in delayed replies, in the sudden coldness of someone who once made your heart feel like a home. And suddenly, you're standing in a mirror, looking at a version of yourself you don't recognize anymore, questioning your worth, your beauty, your presence, your love. It was another woman. The words hang in the air like poison. Not because of jealousy, not because of competition, but because you gave your soul and someone else was simply a secret. Do you know how deep that cuts? Not just to your ego, but to your identity. Because you weren't comparing outfits or curves or lips. You were comparing energies, souls, presence. You start to wonder, was I not feminine enough? Was I too much? Did I love too deeply or not enough? Did I believe too much in the fairy tale of loyalty? And that's where we as women suffer most. We don't just grieve a broken connection. We grieve the pieces of ourselves we sacrifice to keep it alive. You see, society teaches women to compete. It teaches us that if there's another woman, one of us must be better. One of us must be to blame. But here's the truth they never teach you in textbooks or therapy sessions. When someone chooses to entertain another energy while claiming yours, it's not because of your lack, it's because of their void. Let me say that again. Your worth is not diminished because someone else was an option. It reveals who they were, not what you lacked. There's a certain power in walking away without needing to prove you were the better woman. Because real women don't chase validation, they become it. Real women don't compete, they elevate. They don't beg for loyalty, they expect it. And when it's broken, they don't scream, they rise. Sometimes it is another woman. But sometimes the other woman is the mirror version of you, the one you abandoned trying to make someone else feel whole, the version who stopped glowing, the version who silenced her intuition, the version who knew, but hoped it wasn't true. Don't ever lose that version again. The most dangerous thing a woman can do is forget her worth in the presence of someone who never saw it to begin with. You're not here to be an option. You're not here to be a backup. You're not here to wait for crumbs while another is feasting on what was supposed to be sacred. Love is not supposed to humiliate you. It's supposed to cover you, protect you, honor you. And when someone forgets how to do that, you remember how to walk away gracefully, powerfully, without noise, without revenge, because your healing is the loudest response. Let the other woman have what you outgrew. Let her have the confusion. Let her have the broken promises. Let her believe what she needs to, until she too sees the truth behind the charm. But you, keep rising. Don't turn bitter. Don't let the betrayal harden you. Let it refine you, because one day the right kind of love won't ask you to question your femininity, your loyalty, or your place. It won't leave space for another woman. It'll protect you from every distraction. Until then, be the woman who walks in her full light, even when someone else couldn't handle the radiance, because your light is not too much. It just wasn't meant to shine for someone who kept looking in the shadows. There comes a moment in every woman's life where she finds herself sitting in silence, staring into the ache of the unknown, trying to understand how love turned into betrayal. It's not the betrayal itself that breaks her. It's what it whispers to her in the aftermath. It's the quiet but dangerous voice that starts asking, was I not enough? Was I not beautiful enough? Was I too emotional, too loyal, too deep, too loud? It's that voice, the one that creeps in when everyone else is gone, that makes betrayal feel like your reflection has betrayed you too. But let me ask you something. Why is it that when someone breaks our trust, we start breaking ourselves apart trying to make sense of their choice? Why is it that when someone cannot hold our love, we assume we gave it wrong? That somehow, if another woman was chosen, if another energy was entertained, then it must be a reflection of something we lacked. It's not. It never was. And the day you begin to understand that betrayal is a mirror of their emptiness, and not a measurement of your worth, is the day you reclaim every part of yourself that got buried under someone else's broken integrity. They didn't betray you because you weren't enough. They betrayed you because they weren't whole. You see, it takes a certain kind of emptiness to fumble a woman who loves deeply, a woman who shows up emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, fully. It takes a certain kind of void in a person to look love in the face and still search for distractions. It takes immaturity to mishandle something rare, and none of that has anything to do with how worthy you were of honesty, loyalty, or consistency. But society won't tell you that. Society will train you to look inward and twist your reflection. It will tell you that if he left, it must have been because of her, that other woman, that new presence, that silent threat. It will convince you that you must compete, must compare, must become smaller to feel chosen again. But listen to me carefully. Do not let someone else's inability to hold space for your value trick you into shrinking. A man doesn't betray a queen because she lacks her crown. He betrays her because he never knew what royalty felt like to begin with. You didn't lose him. He lost the rarest thing he'll ever encounter. And no, he didn't leave because she was better. He left because he was weaker. Weakness seeks comfort, not challenge, and a woman who loves deeply, with intensity, with truth, with energy, that's a challenge. Not because she's difficult, but because she reflects everything they're not ready to face in themselves. Her strength demands growth. Her vulnerability calls for presence. Her consistency requires emotional maturity. Her standards don't allow mediocrity to rest. So when a person with unresolved wounds meets a woman like that, they'll either rise into their wholeness or retreat into their void. And when they choose the latter, they reach for the easier option, the illusion of connection, the temporary thrill, the soft landing with no depth. They seek someone who doesn't see through them, someone who doesn't ask questions, someone who won't require them to grow. And that is not your failure, that is their fear. And when fear is louder than love, people make choices that reflect their chaos, not your flaws. When people are broken, they look for love that won't challenge their brokenness. They look for partners who allow them to remain who they are, instead of becoming who they are meant to be. But you were never meant to water yourself down just so someone could feel safe in their stagnancy. You were never meant to tiptoe around your femininity, your power, your intuition, your standards, just so someone could keep playing small. And if someone chose another woman over you, it doesn't mean she's better. It doesn't mean you were lacking. It means they wanted someone they could hide with, not rise with. And that is not a loss you need to grieve. It's a revelation you need to accept. Because when someone cannot hold the intensity of your love, you were never truly held to begin with. You were performing, sacrificing, shrinking, hoping they'd meet you at your level, and all the while they were drifting, not because you weren't enough, but because they were never equipped to receive what you carry. Some people are so unfamiliar with emotional safety that when they finally experience it, they mistake it for suffocation. Some are so addicted to chaos, they push away peace. Some are so full of voids, they keep looking for new people to distract them from their own reflection. Let that sink in. They weren't running from you. They were running from themselves, and the tragedy is not in losing them. The tragedy would be in losing yourself while trying to keep them. So don't. Don't lose your sparkle trying to explain your worth. Don't beg to be seen by someone who kept their eyes closed. Don't lower your voice, your values, your energy just to make someone stay who was always halfway out the door. You don't need to compete with another woman when you know who you are. You don't need to get louder to prove your presence. The woman who replaces you will never replace your energy. She may wear the same perfume. She may take your place in pictures. She may even be told the same sweet lies, but she will never have your soul. She will never have your essence, because what you gave was real, and real is not something you can copy or replace. Real is felt, real lingers, Real makes people look in the mirror and regret. So let her have what you outgrew. Let her sit at the table you were once invited to, but never truly honored at. Let her learn, just as you did, that love without integrity is just manipulation with affection on top. Let her carry the illusion until she too sees what you saw, that betrayal doesn't come from a lack of love, but a lack of character, and you keep healing, you keep growing, you keep becoming the woman whose presence is a prayer and whose absence is a lesson. Because betrayal is not about you not being enough, it's about them never being ready, and the irony is they'll come back. Maybe not with roses or apologies, but with regret. Not because they suddenly saw your worth, but because the world outside never matched what you gave. Because when a woman offers love from a place of authenticity, safety, and strength, that becomes the benchmark, and everything that comes after tastes like compromise, but by then you'll be gone, not bitter, not broken, but better. Not because you moved on quickly, but because you moved on truly. You healed your wounds without needing validation. You found peace without needing closure. You held space for your emotions without letting them destroy you. And that is the mark of a woman who no longer doubts her worth based on someone else's inability to honor it. So no, it wasn't your lack, it wasn't your failure, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was their void, and no amount of giving, loving, proving, fixing, or sacrificing can ever fill a void that someone chooses to keep open. Every woman, at some point in her life, is made to believe that she's in a race. Not the kind with a finish line and medals, but the silent, suffocating race of comparison, of being prettier, quieter, more agreeable, less intimidating, more available, less opinionated. She's told in 100 ways that her value lies in outperforming the woman next to her. That her worth depends on being chosen, wanted, preferred, as if love was a prize and she had to earn it by shrinking. But what no one tells her is this: the moment she starts competing, she starts forgetting. She forgets who she was before the world told her she had to be more like her. She forgets what it feels like to stand tall in her own skin, not worried about who's watching. She forgets her fire, her energy, her presence, because she's too busy watching someone else's. And that is how we lose ourselves. You see, this world profits off of women who doubt themselves. Entire industries are built on insecurity, convincing you that if your waist was smaller, your voice was softer, your laughter more polite, your opinions more filtered, then maybe, just maybe, you'd be more lovable, more acceptable, more wanted. But the truth is, no one who truly sees you really sees you, would ever ask you to become less of yourself to be more for them. Competition is a lie we were trained to believe in, so we never step into the power of sisterhood, self-respect, and self-knowledge. When you're made to believe that you are fighting for affection, for attention, for worth, you stay in survival mode, you become reactive, you start chasing validation like it's oxygen, you start watching other women like they're threats instead of mirrors. You stop building your own light and instead start trying to dim someone else's. And worst of all, you lose your memory. You forget what it felt like to just be, to be in a room without comparing, to be in a mirror without critiquing, to be in a relationship without feeling like you're replaceable. You forget that the most powerful energy a woman carries is when she's fully rooted in her own truth, unbothered, undistracted, unapologetic. So let me remind you of what you already know but maybe forgot. You were never meant to compete. You were meant to radiate. No woman who truly knows who she is wastes her time measuring herself against another. Because she understands this sacred truth, there is no one like her, and trying to be someone else, trying to win the game of being picked, trying to outdo or outshine someone else will never satisfy the soul. Because real peace doesn't come from being the best, it comes from being authentic, and in authenticity there is no competition. Because when a woman is authentic, she no longer asks, "Am I enough?" She knows she is. She no longer tries to make someone stay. She knows what she brings to the table, and she's not afraid to eat alone. She no longer fears the presence of another woman, because she knows that her presence is not diminished just because someone else is shining, too. But to return to that space of knowing, you have to stop running someone else's race. You have to stop letting insecurity tell you who to become. You have to stop looking at her and thinking, "I should be more like that." You have to turn back inward and ask yourself, what did I silence in me just to feel safe? What did I change in me just to feel chosen? What did I bury in me just to feel loved? Because the tragedy of comparison is that it doesn't just steal your joy, it steals your identity. And what the world needs now more than ever is not another copy. It needs real, raw, deep women who show up fully, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Women who remember that their softness is power, not weakness. Women who lead with substance, not strategy. Women who are done competing and start creating peace in their lives, creating boundaries in their relationships, creating purpose in their walk, creating space for other women to rise with them, not against them. When you stop competing, you start healing, because you stop living in reaction. You stop defining yourself by who chose you and who didn't. You stop trying to one-up the woman who replaced you or impress the one who intimidates you. You stop needing to prove your worth in rooms that can't even see your value. You start owning the quiet strength of being enough without the noise. You start walking into a room and not needing to perform, not needing to explain why you're there, not needing to overgive or overextend just to keep someone interested. You start looking at other women not as rivals, but as reminders that you can shine too, that you don't have to choose between being powerful and being loved, that your growth does not require someone else's failure. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that there's not enough space for all of us. That if she's beautiful, we must not be. That if she's winning, we must be losing. But that's a scarcity mindset, and you, my love, were not created with scarcity. You were created with abundance, and when you realize that, you stop competing, and you start becoming. Becoming the woman who doesn't need to seek attention because her energy commands it. Becoming the woman who doesn't chase love because she embodies it. Becoming the woman who doesn't need to compete because her uniqueness cannot be replicated. There is no version of you in another woman, and if someone chooses her, let them. That decision doesn't define your beauty, your worth, or your future. It defines their perspective. It shows you what kind of love they're capable of. But it says nothing about the brilliance you carry. The most dangerous thing a woman can do is forget who she is just to fit into the mold of someone else's idea of enough. The most powerful thing a woman can do is remember. Remember who she was before the heartbreak, before the silence, before the competition, before the world tried to teach her that she needed to be anything other than herself. Because the real glow-up isn't physical. It's spiritual, it's energetic. It's the shift that happens when a woman looks in the mirror and finally says, "I don't need to compete. I am, I exist, and that is enough." So choose to remember the power in your voice, even if it shakes. Remember the beauty in your emotions, even when they overwhelm you. Remember the dignity in walking away, even when your heart wants to stay. Remember that you are not here to be the best woman he's ever known. You are here to be the best woman you've ever been, because that kind of woman doesn't chase, she chooses. She chooses herself, her peace, her growth, her truth. And when she walks in a room, you'll feel it. Not because she's loud, not because she's trying to win, but because she carries herself like someone who finally remembered what the world made her forget. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes that not everyone who enters her space deserves access to her truth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to her vulnerability. And most importantly, not everyone deserves the sacred insight of her intuition. Because your intuition, that quiet voice within you, is not just a gut feeling. It is your soul whispering. It is your truth trying to survive beneath the noise of what others want you to believe. As women, we are taught to question it, to silence it, to dismiss it. From a young age, we're conditioned to betray ourselves in the name of being polite, agreeable, likable. We are told, don't be too emotional, don't overthink, don't make things complicated. But what they're really saying is, don't trust your instincts, don't listen to yourself, don't believe the wisdom your body is screaming. And the more we ignore that voice, the more disconnected we become from who we are. That is how identity begins to erode, not in one sudden moment, but gradually. You start tolerating things that used to make your spirit ache. You start making excuses for behaviors that violate your peace. You start calling chaos passion and wounds lessons. You start staying where your heart is begging you to leave, and all the while your intuition is still speaking, but now she's exhausted. Because how many times can she warn you before you start listening? Protecting your intuition is not about being guarded, it's about being aligned. It's about understanding that your inner knowing is your compass. It is not meant to be ignored just because someone calls you dramatic or sensitive. In fact, the world benefits from women who don't listen to themselves, because a woman who doubts her inner voice becomes easier to manipulate, easier to mold, easier to use. But a woman who trusts herself becomes a threat. She becomes untouchable, not because she's cold or hard, but because she is anchored. She knows the difference between being humble and being walked on. She knows the difference between being patient and being played. She knows the difference between being kind and being used, and she guards her intuition like her life depends on it, because in many ways it does. So many women wake up in situations where they can't recognize themselves anymore. They look in the mirror and see a reflection shaped by other people's opinions, expectations, and projections. They don't remember the last time they made a decision that wasn't based on fear or guilt. They don't know who they are without the roles they perform: daughter, partner, employee, friend. And that disconnection, that identity crisis, is the direct result of living life without protecting your intuition. Because when you let the world dictate your value, you become a stranger to yourself. Your identity is not something you earn by pleasing people. It's not something you barter for by staying quiet. It's not something that depends on who stays or who leaves. Your identity is sacred. It's built on the foundation of what you know to be true about you, not what they told you, not what they projected onto you, not what they needed you to be in order to feel comfortable around your power. Your intuition and identity are interconnected. One protects the other. When you trust your intuition, you protect your identity. And when you know who you are, you strengthen your ability to hear that inner voice. But when you doubt one, the other begins to break down. The moment you ignore your intuition is the moment you start trading pieces of yourself to be accepted. You start saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You stay in environments that drain you because you're too afraid to disappoint. You tolerate emotional confusion because you're told you're just imagining things. And the worst part is, you begin to gaslight yourself. You question your own perception. You wonder if maybe you are being too much, expecting too much, needing too much. But what you really need is space, space to remember, space to return to your center, space to strip away the noise and reconnect with your original voice. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who protects her discernment. She doesn't move fast just to impress. She doesn't agree quickly just to belong. She doesn't tolerate things that make her anxious and call it love. She doesn't perform her worth. She embodies it. She pays attention to energy. Not just words, because she knows that words can lie, but energy always reveals the truth. She senses when something feels off, and she doesn't need 100 reasons to trust that sense. She doesn't betray her soul just to avoid making someone uncomfortable. And when she protects her intuition, she protects her entire life. Because when you stop listening to your inner voice, you open the door to people who will manipulate you, situations that will harm you, choices that will break you. And then one day you'll look back and realize you always knew, that moment they spoke to you a certain way, that glance, that silence, that subtle shift, you felt it, but you ignored it because you wanted to believe the illusion. Because your empathy was louder than your boundaries. But not anymore. This is your reminder that you don't owe anyone the version of you that abandons herself. You don't have to be the woman who bends so far she breaks. You don't have to keep explaining your soul to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to apologize for seeing through masks. You are not here to be blind. You are here to be bold. Bold enough to walk away when your spirit no longer feels safe. Bold enough to say, I know what I felt, even when they call you crazy. Bold enough to protect your identity like it's sacred ground, because it is. When you honor your intuition, you stop needing permission. You don't wait for someone to validate what your soul already confirmed. You don't ask, am I overreacting? You ask, am I honoring myself? And if the answer is no, you shift, you move, you let go, not because you're heartless, but because you are whole, and wholeness is quiet. It doesn't need to scream to be heard. It doesn't need to chase to be valued. It simply exists. And that's what scares people who benefit from your confusion. When you no longer doubt your voice, when you no longer need to be rescued, when you are fully awake. So protect your intuition, not just in the big decisions, but in the small moments too. That subtle discomfort in a conversation, that hesitation before saying yes, that tightness in your chest that warns you something is off, those are sacred messages. They are not meant to be silenced. They are meant to be followed and protect your identity. Don't let the world tell you who to be. Don't let a relationship redefine your boundaries. Don't let loneliness push you into pretending. Don't let their confusion become your identity. You are allowed to be deeply connected to yourself. You are allowed to trust what you feel without having all the facts. You are allowed to walk away without explaining the entire story. You are allowed to be wise before you're wounded. You are allowed to protect the very parts of you the world tried to break, because the most dangerous woman is not the loudest. She is the one who knows. She knows her voice. She knows her values. She knows her path. And she protects it with everything she has.